My name is Dee Dee Askew, and I am with the League of Women Voters, and I'm really tickled that you all could be here when you could be at home watching the presidential primary results or the Pennsylvania primary results. So we're really glad that you're here. Let me tell you a little bit about We Vote. It is a project. It's our first project, actually, being coordinated by the Re-Energized League of Women Voters. This project is a nonpartisan collaborative project grounded in the belief that voting is a powerful tool for building communities. More than just a benefit of democracy, voting can be both a personal action for residents and a collective voice for communities. And that voice, we believe, starts at the block or neighborhood level. With this perspective, We Vote works to achieve a very simple goal: to increase voter participation at the neighborhood level in the Grand Rapids Public Schools Board of Education elections. So tonight, with the help of young women from the Girl Scouts of Michigan Trails, youth leaders from the Mayor's Youth Council, and the citywide Student Council, we bring you an opportunity to find out more about the candidates for the upcoming May 6th election. But before I introduce tonight's moderator, I need to do a couple of housekeeping items, some introductions, and then a couple of thank yous. So the housekeeping items are: restrooms are up the stairs and to the right. If you have anything electronic on you, phones, pagers, buzzing devices, please keep them on buzz or vibrate and not on ringtone, please. And then the thank yous. I'm going to also again say thank you to the student groups who have participated and really been an integral part in this process: Girl Scouts of Michigan Trails, the Mayor's Youth Council, and the Citywide Student Council. Can we give them a round of applause, please? And then, do we have any elected officials in the House? Do I see any? Okay. Oh. Thank you, Miss Ruth Lumpkins, right up front. Thank you for joining us. And then lastly, introductions. I'd like to thank the committee who tirelessly and creatively worked to make this unique candidate forum a reality. So in the back, you'll see Tara Wozniak, Lucy Joswick, can you stand? Sandra Laux-Wilson, I don't see her in here, and then Nancy Bedell is right up close to the front as well. So thank you. And then the reason why we're here, the candidates. And I'll start to your left. Derek Martin, Luis Pena, Jane Gietzen, Kenneth Hoskins, Gordon Griffin, Sunita Lanier, and Tony Baker. And then it's my distinct pleasure to introduce our moderator. And our moderator tonight is Jaman A. Alexander. He currently serves as Development Coordinator at Spectrum Health Foundation and the Helen DeVos Children's Hospital Foundation. With a bachelor's degree in Public and Nonprofit Administration from GVSU, Jaman is co-chair of BLEND, B-L-E-N-D, which is a young professionals group geared toward professionals of color. He is a reading volunteer at Alexander Elementary through the Schools of Hope program. And most importantly tonight, he is a graduate of Ottawa Hills High School. Please join me in welcoming him to the podium. Thank you, sir. Have fun.
Well, good evening. We have a little more energy than that. Good evening. There we go. There we go. Well, thanks, Dee Dee, and thanks again to our very committed audience for being here today, and also thanks to our candidates for their presence here tonight and sharing more information about their candidacy. As a proud Grand Rapids Public School graduate, I cannot stress that enough. As a proud Grand Rapids Public School graduate, I am honored to be here holding this forum at Ottawa Hills High School, which is my alma mater, a school that helped to foster my development. But tonight is not about me. In case you're not aware, tonight's questions have been prepared, created, and will be asked by members of the local Girl Scouts, students from the Mayor's Youth Council, and the citywide Student Council. So these students have showed tremendous leadership. Can we please give them another round of applause for their role here this evening? And I ask that may we all show the same dedication to our community by voting in the school board election on Tuesday, May 6, 2008. Before we begin, please allow me to explain the process for tonight's school board candidate forum. As you entered, you received a voter's guide, an evaluation, a note card, and a writing utensil. If you think of a question for the candidates, please write it on the note card and pass it to your right. A volunteer will collect the note cards no later than 7:15. Please understand that all questions, 1, must relate to Grand Rapids Public Schools, 2, may not be personal, addressed to a specific candidate, and must address all candidates. Questions to specific candidates will not be accepted. Due to time constraints, we will only select 4 audience questions this evening. Candidates, please allow me to explain the process for tonight's forum. Each candidate will begin with a 2-minute opening statement explaining their platform and why they're running for the school board election. Next, each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond to each of the 4 predetermined questions. I will rotate who will answer each question. There are 3 timekeepers in the audience tonight. 1 to your right, timekeeper, 1 in the center here, and 1 to your left. Each timekeeper will raise a yellow card when 15 seconds remain. Each timekeeper will raise a red card when 5 seconds remain. At the end of your 90 seconds, the center timekeeper will buzz you if you continue after your time is up. Can we do that one more time? There you go. After all candidates have responded to the 4 predetermined questions, we will begin by taking questions from the audience. Candidates, again, will have 90 seconds to respond to each question, and rotation will continue. At the end of the audience questions, you are more than welcome to stay, enjoy delicious cookies from our Girl Scouts, enjoy beverages, network, and have conversation with our school board candidates. Are there any questions? Well, let's begin with Mr. Derek Martin and our 2-minute opening statements.
Okay, thank you. Can everybody? Okay. First, I'd like to thank the Girl Scouts of America, as well as the League of Women Voters and Ottawa Hills High School, and everyone who participated in bringing this forum together tonight. I am the 2nd generation of my family to graduate from GRPS schools, Grand Rapids Central High School. I graduated in 2000, ran for the school board as a senior in high school at Grand Rapids Central in 2000 as well. My primary reasons for running for the board are to provide equal access and opportunity to education for all students, accountability to the constituents who vote for school board members, who put school board members in their respective positions, to create more oversight between the school board and the superintendent. There's a reason why we have 3 branches of government, and there's a reason why we have a school board. And I believe that that school board is here to provide that oversight and accountability. To add individuality and diversity of age to the school board. I am the youngest person on this stage, and I think that that would help me relate to the students in a way that the other candidates could not. To provide students and staff and community members with safe school buildings and productive learning environments, and to foster a respectful and productive relationship between teachers, other staff, and the administration. So for those reasons, I ask for your support for school board candidate this year. And for the sake of our students, we must change what the school board is doing. I don't always agree with what they're doing, but I do not like what I see. I think we need school board members who are more accountable to the constituents who elect them.
Thank you. My name is Luis Peña. Thank you for having me here, and thank you for the fellow candidates that are willing to participate in this campaign to become a board member. This is a very important position. The people who are willing to help our community in education. And thank you for the audience that are here tonight. I have been the privilege to serve in the board for the last 7 years. I would like to continue working with my fellow board members to create the best school in Grand Rapids, create the greatest school for all of the children. We have many, many issues in Grand Rapids Public School that we have to work together in that. First of all, I want to mention achievement gap. We have to make sure that we have a strong message for our parents, kids, community, to make sure that we have a classroom that is a sanctuary, that the teacher can teach and the student can learn. We have to make sure that everybody is involved in education. I want to finish this short presentation telling you that helping a community in education is the best way to help the community. Only for education we will reach the most important stage of a human being, that is treat each other with respect and with consideration. Thank you.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the Grand Rapids League of Women Voters. I'm very grateful that they are resurrected in Grand Rapids. My name is Jane Geetson, and I want you to remember 3 things about me this evening. 1 is passion, 2 is commitment, and 3 is skills. Passion, first of all, I get asked frequently, why are you running for the school board? Well, I have skin in this game. I have an 8 and a 10-year-old daughter in the system, and it's important for me to make their system the best it can be. And I'd also like to take a minute to thank a teacher, because there's a teacher that, as I was considering moving out of the district, talked me out of it. And I am ever so grateful, because what he said to me is, your children will get a great education in this system, and also we need parents like you to be involved. And little did he know that I would end up running for school board, but I took that challenge, and I have not been disappointed. My children are receiving a wonderful education. Second is commitment. I've been committed to this system from the classroom to the boardroom. I've been involved with my time, talent, and treasure in my children's own school. I've been involved in 2 district facility committees, as well as North Parks, raising nearly $40,000 to fund a master plan that did not pay taxpayer dollars to decide what we were going to do with that $1 million that we've been given. We'll start renovations in the fall. In the summer, excuse me. And last but not least is skills. I have, in addition to my experience in the community with the Institute for Healing Racism, things I've done with Leadership Grand Rapids and Leadership West Michigan, I've had the privilege of managing very large budgets and very large-scale change for Spectrum Health hospitals for the last 9 years. Thank you. Jane Geetson.
Good evening. My name is Pastor Kenny Hoskins, and I want to say, first of all, thank you to the League of Women Voters for having us here on tonight and putting forth this forum. Thank you to the students and all of you community members that are here on tonight. Let me first say that I'm honored and privileged to be here, and I'm secondly honored and privileged to have been a member of the Board of Education for the last 4 years. One of those years I served as vice president, and for the last 2 years I've served as president. I really do believe that as a candidate and as the current president of the GRPS Board of Education that we're headed in the right direction. We're making some positive changes. Do we have a long ways to go? Certainly we have a long ways to go, but the only way we can get to where we need to go is to head in that direction. And I truly believe that I've been a part of helping to get us headed in that direction. I'm dedicated to continuing to create and to fight for solutions, and I need your vote. I need your support on May 6th. What will I do when I'm reelected? I will make sure that we realize the potential of all the students, not some students. They won't be left behind. There's no child left behind. Yeah, there's some negatives, but there's a lot of pros in that. It also holds for accountability. So I really want to help realize the potential of all students. I also want to make sure that we're assuring a quality education, even with the limited fundings that we receive. We know that Grand Rapids has some limited fundings coming to the district, but we want to make sure that we do the best that we can with those limited funds, and also seek out other funds and other revenues. Increasing and enhancing the level of parental and community involvement. Those are my platforms to make sure that I'm in the community. I'm a pastor. I didn't just start working in the district as a school board member, but my children came through this district. I came through the district. It's funny, on tonight, my wife and my 14-year-old is in another part of the building making sure that she's being orientated for 9th grade. Thank you. Remember Kenny Hoskins, May 6th.
Good evening. My name is Gordon Griffin, and I do also want to thank the League of Women Voters. I had understood that they had kind of disbanded, but I'm really glad that you're back again. We appreciate what you do, and also the Girl Scouts. And I do thank you also for coming tonight. I come to, as a candidate to the Board of Education after having spent most of my life in the Grand Rapids Public Schools as a teacher and a principal. And when my wife had surgery after I retired, I became a secretary for 6 weeks. And then I substituted for a couple of other secretaries after that. So I kind of have an inside view of how the school system works. I've been through many curriculum changes and many departmental changes. I've served on many district-wide curriculum committees and advisory committees over the years. I kind of know what it takes to build something new, which is what Dr. Taylor is trying to do, and I do appreciate some of the things that he's started to do, creating community school partnerships to a larger degree than it's ever happened before. And I'd like to see more of that kind of thing happen, and I do support that. I'm really concerned that our teachers have more of a voice in what happens in our school system. I really think those are the professionals that we hire to do the job, and they're closest to the students. These are people who've gone to school, they know how to teach, and for the most part are extremely committed to the students, and we need to listen to them. And they need to be more intimately involved in what decisions are made that affect them. Because I'll tell you, 99% of those teachers care deeply for those students. I appreciate this opportunity tonight, and I would appreciate also your vote on May 6th. Thank you.
Good evening. Thanks again to the League of Women's Voters, the Girl Scouts, as well as the Mayor's Youth Council for putting this forum on. Who am I? My name is Sunita Lanier, and I'm an appointed member of the Grand Rapids Board of Education. And currently I'm running to finish out the term that I was appointed to by my colleagues. That term expires then next year, so I'm only running for the one-year term. Why am I running? I'm running because I have the skills, the knowledge, the education, and the background to be the best school board member that I can be. I'm a graduate of Grand Rapids Public Schools. My daughter is a student for GRPS, and even the past few months of being appointed to this board, I have gained a great knowledge of what it takes to run a school. And in addition to that, I have board experience with multiple nonprofit organizations. I have financial experience, so I'm able to understand the financials that come across the table. I'm a member of the legislative committee for the Grand Rapids Board of Education, and that's the key to making sure that we have the right people making the right decisions in Lansing that will ultimately impact and positively impact this district. In addition to that, I plan to participate in continuing to vote for positive change for this district, including some of the public-private partnerships that I've been a part of voting in favor of. And in addition to that, just seeking community input on some of the decisions that we have to make. So I would like your vote on May 6th, as I would continue to represent this community, because I've lived in this community for several decades, and I will take your position to the table as I'm sitting there each each board meeting. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Tony Baker. To tell a story, the first time I was in this room, my daughter was up here on stage. She was 4 years old, dancing for the John T. Ballet Company, and so I was in the audience. So I threatened my daughter this morning that I too would dance on stage tonight in a tutu, and so she's here. And anyway, my theme for the campaign is "We Are Grand Rapids Public Schools," and I was thinking about that tonight as I was walking over. I walked past our neighbors, the Darlins, who send their kids to charter schools. I walked past my neighbors, the Fossies, who are pushing the 90s, and it's been decades since they've been in the school system, and their grandkids have been in the school system. I walked past Mulick Elementary School. I walked past Sylvan Christian Schools, and as I got here, we are all Grand Rapids Public Schools. All of those people who are connected to it, and I want to help the district, the community, claim ownership over the public schools as theirs, and as their responsibility, and hopefully their success as we I think can become a model school system, a model city school system. Over the last 20 years, I've been an advocate, meaning that I've been arguing on behalf of urban schools. I've been debating. I've been researching communities in Chicago and here in Grand Rapids, and also working in Big Rapids, Michigan, where I teach at Ferris State University. For 20 years, and this has been my, my major calling is trying to bring about equality for children's opportunities. I got my PhD at the University of Illinois at Chicago in 1995, where in urban sociology, where I studied urban communities, African American communities, Latino communities. And those experiences have given me the skills to look at policy, and also the skills to be able to learn how to represent various constituencies in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now proceed with the questions. Candidates, again, please keep in mind, answers will be limited to 90 seconds. Asking the first question this evening is Amy Edwards, representing Grand Rapids Montessori and the Citywide Student Council.
Okay. There is currently discussion of enforcing uniforms in Grand Rapids Public Schools. What are the pros and cons of school uniforms?
We'll start with Derek Martin.
I think there are lots of pros and cons to school uniforms. Personally, I do support school uniforms. I think that some of the pros is that these school uniforms could increase morale and the students and pride in their school. But I think we also have to listen to what students have to say. And it can't be an adult facilitated response from students. It has to truly be what students have to say. So I would like to hear what students have to say, but I do support a uniform policy. But I would be willing to listen to students, even listen to ideas of designing different uniforms to increase school pride. Some of the cons of it is, when you wear a uniform, you kind of lose individuality. But I am a supporter of school uniforms. But before I make any decision as a school board member, I would want to hear what the students have to say. And if our students were overwhelmingly against it, that would have some bearing on my decision.
Well, the school uniform is a project that is coming from students, and we, as Derek said, we have to listen from the students. But anything that can bring what I said before, adding to the sanctuary of the classroom, I am pro uniform. If we don't have the uniform, at least it's a dress code that everybody go to the classroom willing to learn, willing to teach, and we can keep the necessary discipline in the classroom. I don't like the word mandate that they have to work uniform, but we have to listen to the students who start the project and see what is the pro and the cons, and then we will decide what is the best for the kids of Grand Rapids. Thank you.
I think the thing that I love the most about where the uniform program came from is that it came from the kids, because I think there's nothing better than change born from within our young people. I just was so excited and elated to hear about that. I'm a supporter of school uniforms. I'm glad it's not a bunch of adults making that decision, because I think it will have a lot more teeth if we have peer pressure and peers deciding that for their colleagues. So I'm excited about that. Am I worried about them being able to express themselves? I think they'll figure that out, to be honest with you. They'll figure out how to express themselves in different ways, and maybe even more positive ways. So I don't see too many cons.
Yes. I believe that there's more pros versus the cons with the school uniforms. We currently have 7 schools that have uniforms within their schools. I believe that Southeast Academic Center, I'm not sure how long they've had it, but I've had 3 daughters that have attended Southeast Academic Center, and they all had to wear uniforms. For me, as a parent of a student that was in that type of a school, it was a lot easier for me, because we were able to, they were 2 years apart and 2 years apart, so we were able to keep those uniforms and pass them down to the next door. 2 years later, pass them down, and we made sure we kept them up pretty good. So that helped out a lot. I think maybe one of the cons may be finding those uniforms sometimes, because individuals, parents are running out to get those uniforms. But if we are smart, as I know all of us parents are, we will be wise and go early. And also, if we happen to go late, we will get those stores, where the uniforms are, and if they run out, we'll just shop around and find some more, or talk to some friends, some community leaders. I think there's also something going on where they're talking about having a store within the district or some place that we can go to find those uniforms. Again, as the other candidates have said, I'm excited that this is a student initiative. It's coming from the Student Advisory Council of the Superintendent's Advisory Council. So this is great. I'm in favor of it.
I'm also in favor of student uniforms. I've seen how they've affected schools in the East, and those uniforms, some of them are pretty complicated. I suspect the ones that we would have here would not be very complicated. I think it presents a scene of unity on a school campus. When you look at the students, you see that they're all kind of similarly dressed. I think it speaks outwardly of some kind of unity. I think it might even lower the cost to the parent, because the kids wouldn't be so much worried about the latest fad, or how short or how long their skirts are supposed to be, and so on and so forth. I don't know whether it affects the atmosphere in learning. We'd have to wait and see. If it really does affect learning atmosphere, I suspect it would. I think kids are going to be kids regardless of what they have on. At the same time, if the discipline policies are equalized across the school, the kids are dressed similarly, I think it presents a scene of unity. I think kids might feel that they're losing their uniqueness. That might be a problem. I know in the student forums that the students have held, there's been some opposition from the students. and there probably would be opposition no matter what's decided. But generally, I think it's a good thing. And again, a student initiated event, I think, is the best that we can possibly do.
My campaign slogan is supporting our future leaders. And the future leaders of Grand Rapids decided that school uniforms is the best thing to implement at the secondary school level. And so definitely I would support that this is something coming from the students. In addition to that, those same future leaders went out to the community and they've had forums, some of which were canceled because of weather, but they've had forums to get input from other students and community members. There is another forum coming on Monday, May 5th. And I know for sure here at Ottawa, and I can't remember the other school, but both will be held on May 5th. So if you'd like to share your input, we certainly would welcome you to come to either of those forums, and I'm sure that you can go to the district's website to get more information about where. I think some of the pros is that the uniforms will eliminate distractions. You wouldn't have to worry about competing with the latest fashion with your counterparts in school. I think it could possibly avoid discipline issues that are associated with the dress code and violations of the dress code policy. And then I think the other pro is that there was a way for the community to weigh in on that. The cons I would see is that those students who disagree with it may definitely have some frustration if they're implemented. And then finally, a con I think would be the costs associated with the uniforms. And the district is prepared to listen and create ways so that funding could be available.
I would support school uniforms. I was visiting Grand Rapids Montessori High School on last Friday, and just in the hallway, a student was sent to go change, and I just thought it was that was in that sense it was too much distraction. I was also at Central High School last week, and Principal Gardner was talking about their decision to go to school uniforms, and I think I would have probably preferred it in retrospect when I was in high school and some of the stresses that I went through trying to fit in with my classmates. I'm quite sure at the time I would have voted against it if I'd have had a say. I think actually on this one it's okay to let adults have a say in the decision. But I think kids wear uniforms all over the world, and they learn how to learn, and I'd rather that they figure out how to express their individuality in other ways. I do think that two things I want to say in regards to the proposal that has come up. I don't think it should be performance-based. I think that will create a stigma for those that don't pass their exams, and the last thing we need is a bunch of kids walking around the city, with a stigma on their back. Secondly, I do think that we need to address the expense, and I think that goes along with my theme of the community being engaged. There is an extra expense. It's not that every parent doesn't go out and buy new clothes for their kids every August, and we do have to recognize that we're going to have to assist in the providing of those uniforms. Thanks.
Thank you. The next question comes from Kelsey Perdue, representing City High School and the Mayor's Youth Council. We will ask Luis Pena to respond first.
Hello. There is currently discussion of combining the high school athletic teams. Many students are opposed to this issue. What is your opinion on combining the athletic teams?
Could you please repeat the question?
Sorry. There is currently discussion of combining the high school athletic teams. Many students are opposed to this issue. What is your opinion on combining the athletic teams?
Well, definitely, I want to prioritize first why we go to school, and it's to learn and to make sure we have a good education. And we have other activities like sport that also we can do at school, but have to be priority. We have to make sure the student have a good grade. The student are in the top grade in order to go and participate. This is And I understand because my first job was a physical education teacher in high school. But I had to make sure that all of the participation in the sport had to be first dependent of what is your grade. We cannot allow a student to be good in the sport and then it's failing in school. That's why we have to make sure that we organize very well the participation of sport and other extracurricular activities in the school.
Being a graduate of Creston High School, I'm a polar bear. I know there's great pride in each individual school and their identity of their sports teams and the competition and those kind of things. So that is the drawback of combining sports teams, is that we have, generations worth of affiliation with those teams. So that will present a challenge. But I believe because our system is losing many children every year, we have to do something to provide great sport programs for the kids that are here. And I think that combining will assist in that. It's an unfortunate reality that we have to face, but I think we can all get beyond our affiliations with our teams and create those new teams, because we can be bigger, stronger, and better for tomorrow.
Yes, in our Phase 2 facilities plan, we're looking at going to 2 comprehensive high schools and 2 schools of thematic. And in doing so, of course, the student body is going to be less in some schools. And as Ms. Geetson just said, we have been losing students. We're doing a lot to attract students back and to retain the students that we have now. But the main reason that we have to look at the sports situation is even for competitiveness. I was fortunate this morning. I'm not old, but I'm seasoned. And I was playing basketball this morning at 7:30. Been doing that for the last couple of months, so you may see me walking a little stiff. But at 7:30 this morning, we were playing. Every Tuesday and Thursday we play at one of the local churches. And I didn't know this guy was a referee until this morning. He says, "Hey, Ken, I met one of your athletic directors yesterday." And I said, "Oh, that's great." He says, "But it was an unfortunate situation. I was reffing a Union and Ottawa baseball game, and Ottawa Hills had to, which is I attended and graduated from Ottawa Hills, yay, and go Indians." And he says that I ended up having to call a forfeit because Ottawa Hills did not have enough players. That's another situation to have on the team. There's only 9 players on a baseball team. They did not have enough, so they had to forfeit. So that's another situation. You don't have enough people to fill the teams, so we really have to be mindful of that. Scholarships, competitiveness. Thank you.
I'm sure it's a critical issue to the students, more so than it is for us adults, and rightly so. There's a sense of pride if you're a polar bear or an Indian. I don't even remember what my high school mascot was, but it usually continues even into adulthood as a sense of pride. But I still think it can happen within the 2-school situation, where we have the students that are in the smaller thematic schools going to either Ottawa or the other school. And who knows, we could have a north team and a south team, or, that's what they have in Forest Hills Northern, and so on. We might need to rename the sports teams, who knows. But I don't think it's necessarily a negative thing. And again, you will have more students, as Ken said, participating in sports so that you can have a full complement and even perhaps a junior varsity kind of situation. So I don't see it as a bad thing, but I do see change as difficult. And it's going to be most difficult for the students probably and for some of the parents. But I think it has to happen because of what's being proposed. I think will bring more students back to Grand Rapids and keep those students that we already have here on our campuses.
Ms. Perdue, this is a tough question for me. I was MVP of the Pom Pom Squad at Creston High School, and I am very proud to be a polar bear. But to be honest, as of late, I don't have a whole lot of information on the athletics. It's so preliminary at this stage, but there is talk that with the change in the secondary schools, that this is one of the options of having only two schools. And I would have to agree with most of what the panelists have said, is that I think that there are some pros in that it will allow us to be more competitive with the OK Conference and the teams that we'll be playing against. It will also allow us to have more camaraderie within the two high schools and the smaller thematic schools. I think it will probably be the toughest. The pro is probably the current students now will have a very difficult time separating from the schools that they currently attend and the sporting teams that they are currently a part of. And I think once we get over that hurdle, which will take a few years, because once the students coming in, once they enter into the high schools and they're already separated and divided in that way, it'll be easier for them to understand. So I think it'll be some growing pains, but I think the pros are outweighing the cons in that we will become a little bit more competitive. Thank you.
Well, I think it is important for the adults to this extent that, I think it does, the school spirit, it is important for people who graduated from schools in Grand Rapids and the school spirit. So obviously we have polar bears and Indians, and what is Ottawa now? Bengals. I'm an Edgewater Eagle. I went to high school in Orlando, Florida, so I don't have really much to lose in this. But what I do think is important is, first of all, we do need to maintain that the school spirit does help the community be invested in Grand Rapids Public Schools, and it's very important to have as much of that as we can. I also think it's most important to make sure that as many athletic resources are made available to the kids that are participating. I know it has a major impact on the success of high school students and their ability to think about going on to college. I also think that communication, there's a lot, as I walk the streets, talking to people about this election, many people have lots of ideas about what might happen, and they're very much concerned. And again, if we don't want to lose people's participation in the schools, we need to make sure that there's good communication on this to maintain the public investment in the school system. Thanks.
I must say, as an alumni of Grand Rapids Central High School, Grand Rapids Central High School is the oldest school in the city of Grand Rapids. It's the second oldest school in the state of Michigan. We have more trophies and championships in sports than any other school in this city during our time of over 160 years as a school. So it would be difficult for me to lose the Ram as a mascot, but once a Ram, always a Ram, and that's something that Central graduates would understand. But I think we must not focus on what we want as alumni, but we have to focus on what's best for the students. And I think that combined teams would benefit the students as far as more competitiveness, and they're going on to possibly NCAA colleges and so forth. I think it would increase resources for our sports teams. What four teams don't have now, we can provide for two teams. So there are definitely some pros to this. I do believe, however, that we would need to rename both schools' teams. I think the trade-off that we can present to students as a way of accepting losing two teams in the city is that the names would be changed. And it might be something that could be done by a popular vote at those two schools. But I would want to make sure that the new students that are moved from the respective schools continue a sense of pride in their school and be able to have a voice and a mascot that they respect and deserve.
Thank you. For those of you who just walked in, you should have received a note card. If you would like to ask our panelists, our candidates, a question, please indicate that on the note card and pass it to your right. Volunteers will be around in just a few minutes to collect those. Also, please keep in mind all questions must relate to Grand Rapids Public Schools. Questions may not be personal. Questions must address all candidates. Any questions addressing one specific candidate will not be asked. Our third question comes from Leanna Bowman, representing City High School and Girl Scouts of Michigan Trails.
What will you do to ensure the voices of the students are heard and considered when making policy decisions for GRPS?
I think first and foremost, I will be out in the schools talking to people, not just in the school setting in an official way, but out in my neighborhood and other things. I also think that the superintendent has a student advisory panel, which I certainly will take the time to listen and leverage that feedback. But it's amazing what you can find out just by visiting with people in the neighborhoods, because I am learning a great deal by walking around and talking to people. And I think that's a very effective way of getting feedback.
Thank you. I'm glad you asked that question because, again, part of my platform is community and parental involvement. Students are part of the community, and I feel that they certainly should have a voice. So some of the things that I would do certainly would be to encourage and support the Student Advisory Council, support the Superintendent's Student Advisory Council, support the Mayor's Youth Council. All of those youths are important. Make sure that I would be in the community as I already am, but even increase that the more to town hall meetings and have those students involved, possibly like the Mayor's Youth Council is on tonight, helping to put forth the effort to invite individuals to help with the agenda, those type of things. But we also currently, which I would make sure we would continue, have 2 student reps on the Board of Education, and that's a great platform for the students to have a vocalization within the district. Those students come and they are 11th grade, one 11th grader, one 12th grader. They represent the student body as a whole in the district, so I would make sure that would continue.
I'm a supporter of the PTSA, Parent Teacher Student Associations, rather than PTAs. I know we need the involvement of parents, but we also need involvement of the students, and not just students that are in the immediate school, but students who have been in the school in the past as well. I think the opinion of students is extremely important as we gauge the kinds of things, kind of changes we're going to make in the school system, as much as I feel we need to honor the teachers who serve those students and their opinions. I often think we don't ignore the opinions of teachers, but sometimes we take it for granted that they will just understand. Teachers know what it's like in the classroom. Students also know what it's like in the classroom. And I believe it's important that people who are involved in actually implementing something within their school, the teachers and the students, need to have a voice in the development of that kind of thing. I've heard some amazing wisdom coming from my 14 and 16-year-old granddaughters. The extent to which they understand issues is far beyond what I did. I know when I was 14 and 16 years old because of, I think, our media and the advantages that they have today with the computer and media to get the information. So I definitely feel that our students, along with our parents, need to be involved in decision-making processes.
Again, my slogan is supporting our future leaders, and I believe our future leaders need to be heard. I will continue to support having forums where the students of Grand Rapids Public Schools will have an opportunity to weigh in on decisions before we vote. I'd like to hear what the students have to say. I think this uniform policy is a good example of that. They have been very, very active in trying to get some of the feedback from their peers so that we can make the best decision. And I don't think it should stop there. I think that most of the decisions that will greatly impact them, they should weigh in on those. And so I will be an advocate for having forums for students as well as their parents, as well as their teachers and any other member of the community to weigh in on what they feel is best for our future leaders.
Certainly we need to have arenas to talk to students, and I also think that we can have arenas to talk to their advocates, which I would definitely include teachers as their advocates. I believe that most teachers have a pretty good insight into what their kids need and what their kids' troubles are, their students' troubles are, et cetera. And I think that we need to find ways to do that. I think we also need to relate to other community institutions where children are participating in activities. But what I'm most concerned with is how do we get a chance to listen to students who are not engaged in schools or these other community institutions? And I think that some of the after-school programs that have happened in the city, such as Loop, is one way to do that. But I think that there's a lot of kids in the city who have disengaged from the community in the ways that we kind of expect them to. They don't end up on these student councils, and we have to figure out how to get them heard and get back into the institution. But even I've also heard, I was talking to a student from City High last week, and which I think is a school that tends to have apparatuses in place to get their voices heard, and they're still complaining about their textbooks as being really old. And so, we need to figure out ways to listen. And to be honest, I think that that's not just the board members, but the other adults in the community. Thank you.
As a student in the Grand Rapids Public Schools, I was the only student on my school's school improvement team. I served as president of my class for 4 years in a row, citywide student council president for 2 years, student representative to the school board for 2 years, as well as a founding member of the Mayor's Youth Council and various other organizations and clubs. So I think one of the single most important things that we can do if elected as school board members and make sure that we continue to provide avenues where students' voices are heard. In some situations, even allow students to make the decisions. There are some decisions that students can make. So as a person who has been a student leader, there are avenues for students to have their voices heard, and we need in every way to create more avenues for students to be heard. But we must also not leave out the students who aren't student leaders. I value the work that student leaders do in the schools. I'm a former student leader, but we must also make sure that all students' voices are heard.
Well, my understanding is that the student councils are adding value to the Grand Rapids Public School decision-making process. We have to hear them because they are our future leaders, and we have to involve them in the decisions. Also, if we have community opinions, also principles, all of the people affected by the policies have to be involved in that and listen to the opinions, and that way we don't have to make, and I don't believe that we have to make unpopular decision if we listen to the people who are affected by the policies. Definitely the students are right now adding value to that process.
Sorry. Asking our final question is Justin Chambers, representing Grand Rapids Montessori and the Citywide Student Council. Kenneth Hoskins will respond first.
Good evening. The Student Council has noticed a lack in a system of checks and balances to analyze teachers and staff to ensure their classrooms are productive learning environments. How would you change the current system to ensure all classes are productive places for students to learn?
Thank you again. I think that's important because we need to make sure that the environment is conducive so that students will have an opportunity to learn, as well as the teachers have an opportunity to teach. I think that some of that could be a safety issue. We're doing some positive things. I have a document even right in front of me that mentions 26 to 27 initiatives that the district has implemented as it relates to safety. It's taking a while for some of those to come to fruition, but they are already in place. So I would make sure that those are implemented and they wouldn't just be a document setting, making sure that those would, it does no good to have a policy or rules or documents if we're not going to implement them. So that would be one thing I would do. We also would make sure that the training that's coming through the IFLs, make sure that the district would implement those. That's coming from the University of Pittsburgh. We have a grant that's helping our teachers as it relates to being more effective teachers. Not that they are not effective, but we all can improve in areas, as well as the administration. So I think that it has to start from the Board of Education as it relates to training, all the way down to the students with their training in the classrooms. And if we do that and not just have it on paper, but make sure that it's implemented, make sure that safety is one of the top priorities, we will have environments that are conducive to learning.
Thank you, Justin, for asking the question. I got the opportunity, I believe it was yesterday. My days are kind of running together now, to meet with the cabinet, which are the primary officials that are responsible for changes that are made in the Grand Rapids Public School District. And I was really astounded at the amount of things that are happening right now. One is the Institute for Learning, which Reverend Hoskins just mentioned. The Institute for Learning, as I understand it, the purpose of that is to make sure that every classroom environment is similar. That doesn't mean it's going to be the same, because you have individual teachers with individual gifts and talents and so on and so forth, and methods of instruction. But I think that's one good way. It helps teachers zero in on the particular things that they need to teach and the ways in which they can teach them that will meet the needs of the students. Now, not every student in a classroom is going to get whatever it is they're teaching at the first time. I know that from experience. Sometimes it takes longer than that. Apparently, there are procedures in process right now that will help those students. I'm thinking of English language learners, those who are learning a second language, for instance, that they would be given some extra help. Students who are having some problems, perhaps attention deficit or that kind of thing, are given some special tools. I was just buzzed.
Checks and balances for teachers and staff. First, let me just say the responsibility of the Board of Education really is policy driven. And although that's our primary responsibility, and we do have one employee and his name is Dr. Taylor, I think that there still is a level of accountability that needs to happen at the classroom level. I am not a teacher, so I wouldn't necessarily walk into the classrooms all the time. I am in the schools, I am visiting, I'm talking with students, but I think there's a certain level of respect that you have to give to the teachers and the administrators of the schools that they are teaching in. But I think we do have levels or protocol in place to be able to get the feedback necessary. Probably what we have not done that is a good idea to request is to share that feedback in the public. We probably need to have reports shared at the Board of Education meetings so that the public, the community, would be aware of what's taking place in those classrooms. The administrators of the schools have a reporting structure and then those people report directly to Dr. Taylor. And so we often receive feedback about what's happening in those schools, but that's feedback that we may hear individually as opposed to collectively. So to answer your question, I think the first thing and the best thing to do is start communicating what's available and what's already in existence. And then the second thing would be to have an open door policy so that people can address their concerns with us. Thanks.
First of all, these were really challenging questions, and I'm glad they're over, and hopefully the audience will ask questions that I can relate to immediately. But I mean, and it shows the importance of looking at the vantage points from different people that are part of the system. I would say that certainly teacher trainings, and giving teachers opportunities to learn, and they should also be engaged learners within the process. I think that there are, if schools have a creative culture in place and a culture that allows some creativity amongst the teachers, it is difficult given the constraints that are placed on the expectations of what has to happen. I think that creative culture, along with a trusted peer review process where teachers are working together to help each other out, are really positive. I do think that we need to measure student success in different ways other than simply, standardized tests. And how engaged again the kids are with the classes. I think that's also important. I'm also impressed with the the IFL stuff. I've read the material, and I think that if you haven't read it, I would encourage people to go to the GRPS website and click on the articles and read the ones about community and teacher expectations. And when I teach my students socialization in my classroom and I talk about the importance of learning, I say pretty clearly that the first time I hear a teacher talk in a way that gives the impression that they do not expect my kid or other kids in the classroom are going to learn is the moment that I end up talking to a principal. Thanks.
I think it's as far as that question, to make sure that all classes are productive. First of all, I'd like to say that I'm finally glad to hear one of the elected school board members admit that safety is an issue, as many of the other candidates have been saying, and as they have been claiming it has not been. I think we need to raise the level of expectations, but not just for students, but for teachers. The level of expectation for all staff members that work in the school, from everyone down to the custodian to everybody up to the principal. We need to raise the level of expectations, what we expect, as well as provide the resources that students and teachers need to learn. I've heard too many times that we don't have books, we don't have chairs, we don't have desks. Those things are essential to students learning. And as far as Ms. Lanier's comment on reports, I was at a board meeting last night where a parent's child was beaten and stomped on the playground of Camp Hall School. She went through all of the proper protocol, as Ms. Lanier said, and got no results. Her child was hospitalized as a result of it. Superintendent became defensive. She got no response from the director of security and no response from the principal. And the child still, his only punishment was to not let him have recess. So the one thing that we can do is confront the issue of safety, because it does exist in our schools. Thank you.
Well, I have to say that a district like a Rapid Public School that have 20,000 students, we cannot say that we don't have problems. We have problems. We cannot hide the problems. The only thing is, I don't think we're going to solve the problem blaming each other. Brian Tracy said that blaming is not the solution to the problems, if not take responsibility of your action, good or bad. And this is what we have to do. Now we have, and I want to say that is a controversy between the administration and the union, accusing each other. Why we don't get together and have a table and brainstorm what are the issues and then solve the problem, because we know how to solve the problem. The problem is that we are going every day to the media to solve the problem in the media. This has to be stopped, and then recognize what we have to do. And I would say again, we have to create a sanctuary in the classroom that the teacher can teach and the student can learn. This is the most important for us. Thank you.
I'm not going to repeat everything that all the other panelists have said, but I will tell you a story. When I was a senior in high school at Creston, my mom died. And if it weren't for Mrs. Anderson, who I'll never forget, I probably wouldn't have graduated from high school, although I was a very successful student up until then. But it was due to a counselor in a high school that kept me going just that much further. And I was very excited to read about the Student Advocate Program, because I think if we don't begin to address the students as whole people, when they walk through our doors, they have lots of issues. especially the students of Grand Rapids Public School, where 81% of these students are qualifying for free and reduced lunch, and all the complications that come with poverty and many other issues. We have to treat them as whole people. And I have a debt of gratitude to Mrs. Anderson for allowing me to graduate from high school.
Thank you. We will now proceed with questions from the audience. Gordon Griffin will respond first. The topic of school safety, as well as student behavior and disciplinary processes, have recently been prominent in local news. What policies do you support to guarantee each student's right to due process in GRPS, administrative disciplinary procedures?
Thank you for that easy question. We have gone over and over this question. The board has gone over and over this question, and I've watched the process. There is due process that's in place, and there is a procedure that's in place. It apparently seems that in some situations that process wasn't followed, and the woman that spoke last night at the board meeting is maybe one example of a person who didn't, the process wasn't followed. That really is, I think, the prime responsibility of the principal of the school, to know the policies and to make sure that that principal is available for discussions with the students and the parents. As a principal, I negotiated many kinds of solutions to problems that existed in our school, and ours was an elementary school, I admit. It wasn't a secondary school. But it resulted in a solution and a conclusion that was okay with both sides. If it's a situation where teachers are intervening in an unnecessary way or an improper way, that has to be dealt with at the building level with the school principal, and then if it has to go further than that, it will. There were a couple of teachers when I was a principal who were disciplined as a result of some actions that they took with students. Two of those teachers chose to leave the school system. So I think things can happen, but we need to follow.
I think with school safety, we need to piggyback on what I've been saying the entire time, which is look to our future leaders to help us to resolve some of the conflicts. In some of our schools right now, we have peer advocates that will come and help resolve conflict resolutions for students who may have some disagreements with one another. And I think that's one of the things that we need to maybe implement in all of our schools at all levels. And I think that would help them. It will give the students an opportunity to utilize their leadership and develop their leadership skills. And in addition to that, it will also help students to see that there are different ways of resolving conflicts than what they may have learned someplace else. And I think the other piece is, going back to what Mr. Griffin has said, is the administrator of that school is the primary responsible person for what takes place in that school. And because safety is an issue to an extent, I don't think it's as extreme as it has been shared. I think that if you're utilizing the same process to process the data that you have before you for multiple years, then you can say that there is a change in the data because you're using apples to compare apples. So, but that doesn't say that we shouldn't work on developing different solutions to those problems.
I think Luis is correct in terms of referring to this public debate and this attempt to deal with this issue through the media is problematic. And I think that in terms of I understand Dr. Taylor's standpoint of wanting to protect the perception of the schools, and I teach about schools and I teach about the viability of cities, and so I understand that clearly because I do it a lot. I do think that when I talk to people, I've talked to city commissioners and parents and teachers and students and people who pull their kids out of schools and people who are committed to staying in the schools, and this is something that all of them express at least some concern over. And I think we need to have an open, honest discussion about these issues. In terms of due process, and I think that we must see that the parents have a right, the parents of the children have a right to be heard. And I think that the situation that was referred to at last night's board meeting was tragic in that this parent felt that she had lost the ability to have a say over what was happening in her child's life. And she didn't have the choice to pull out and go to another school system. And that's the due process that I think is most important, that we have to, all of us, take very seriously at any level that we encounter people. I think that there are trainings available for teachers that I think that there's a climate of people are being concerned of giving the impression that schools aren't safe. So I know that there are crisis intervention trainings that help to de-escalate frustrating situations in schools, and I hope that we can invest more in that.
There are some significant issues of safety in our school district, but there are policies in place. And I think if we make sure that we are following the policies in place, with regard to the story that I told in my last question, the policy was obviously not followed. And it's up to a school board to make sure, to provide that oversight and that accountability to make sure that their constituents have due process. But it's also up to the school administration as well. But I think, I don't look at it as a two-sided argument. I look at, the superintendent has gotten on TV and the superintendent has refused to sit down and talk with the bargaining units about the issue of safety. He has even taken it to the level of saying that our schools are safe, that we don't have any issues. And that's just not true. So I think that the bargaining units and the teachers and the students and the community want to have a discussion and a conversation about safety, but I think we have a superintendent who is 100% supported by his board, who has refused to even address it as an issue. And I have to say that. And I think we need to spend less time trying to spin the truth to make it look good for us. Nobody's trying to shame the Grand Rapids Public Schools. I'm a graduate of this school district. I'm very proud of the school I went to, and I'm very proud of this school district. But we have to spend less time trying to spin the truth and tell people what they want to hear and deal with the issues.
Well, all of the respect that I have for my friend Derek, I understand that we have to reinforce our policy. But I think the district, and starting with Dr. Taylor, is very open to opinions from the union, from my friend Derek, from everybody who want to go and say, this is the way we are going to solve the problem. It's not the blame. It's taking responsibility. I'm going to say that again and again. We know that we have issues. And remember, Grand Rapids Public School is the most diverse district where we have 40 plus different languages. That means how many people are from different parts of the whole world. But we have to make sure that everybody play the same game by our policies. Everybody respect, and we create the zero tolerance of any kind of harassment in the Grand Rapids Public School.
I believe that we do need to assure that policies are being followed. I think it's time for real, honest dialogue between the two parties. I think the biggest solution to this issue is stop having it be an adult issue, because this is about the kids. And if we can't keep the children at the center of what we're talking about, then we have lost sight of why we're here. And I think nobody would dispute that at this panel, that we need to stay focused on the kids to provide a safe, happy learning environment. Otherwise, they will not flourish and be the leaders that we need them to be for the future. Because eventually, I want to retire, and I want to have good leaders following behind me.
we do currently have a policy in place, and as Mr. Griffin was saying, that policy, as it relates to disciplinary action, needs to start in the school with the principal. And there are administrators that are in place that the principal, if the principal is not able to handle it satisfactorily in the school, then they will move it to those administrators that are in place. And then it comes to the superintendent. It's like a chain of command. Comes to the Board of Education. Then we would have expulsion hearings if necessary. Let me just say hearings. And contingent upon the extent of the disciplinary action, it could go to expulsions as well as lower areas. There's a hearing process. There are 2 to 3 board members that are present, and the guardians or parents of those individual students as well as the students. There are hearing officers there. And contingent upon what that is, if the parent feels the decision that the decision was not adequately acceptable for them, then they have another process that they can come back, and it's called the appeals hearing. And again, the same setup. But what happens in that is they come and there's 3 opportunities that they can have that. You see if due process was followed, if special needs of the student was not met, and if an error was made at the first decision. That's the only way that that prior decision could be overturned. Let me say this also. I came up through this district. My siblings, I've been boo-boo.
We may not have microphones, but the buzzer works. Our next question, Sunita Lanier will have the opportunity to respond first. Grand Rapids Public Schools stress parental involvement, yet high school personnel discourage parents from being involved. As a board member, what policy would you propose to assure our high schools are attentive to parents and the community regarding high school involvement?
Just to make sure I understand your question, so don't start timing me. Read the first part of it. Did you say that the high schools, that someone wanted parents not to be involved at the high school level? Or
yes, the question from the audience says, Grand Rapids Public Schools stress parental involvement, yet the high school personnel discourages parents from being involved.
Well, the first thing I'd have to say is whoever wrote this question, I'd like to have a conversation with you after, because I'd like to know which high school personnel discourage any parental involvement. But to move on to answer the question, I think that we need to diversify our means of getting parents involved. We currently have parent-teacher conferences. Parents can also volunteer, come into the schools and things of that nature. But we need to go out to the parents to find out from them what works best for them. We have evening conferences. What about daytime conferences? What would work best for those parents? What if we came out into the community and went to different locations to be able to engage the parents in dialogue? I'd like to see us increase parental involvement at every single level. Just because the students in high school are on the verge of being our future leaders, I don't think that as parents we should allow the students to just take ownership of their education at the high school level. I have a daughter who's in high school, and I am very actively involved in everything that takes place with her education. She makes her own decision, but with the help of me sharing some of the information and wisdom that I have as a parent to help her make the best decision. So parental involvement is essential to the success of our future leaders.
I certainly hadn't heard of that rule, and would certainly challenge it, if I had kids in high school. In fact, fortunate my kids go to the Grand Rapids Montessori School, and not only have I interacted with the elementary school kids where my kids go, but I also have gotten a chance to work with the high school kids who I'm taking up to Ferris on Friday. I would say I think that there's several in terms of experiences I've encountered other parents. I've coached, so to speak, a 6 and 7 year old track team from the school, and I remember a couple times encountering parents at these track meets, and and how they felt like I was somehow a school official or someone that they needed to approach as an authority figure. And I was thinking, I'm just the guy stupid enough to volunteer to be the track coach for a 6 and 7-year-old track team. So we can all participate and have this. I think that there are parents who are intimidated by, and I would imagine it's definitely true at the high school level. I have talked to people in various Latino communities especially who say that they do not feel that they have the opportunity to understand the processes for participation and don't feel. And I think that we need to, as Sunita was saying, take the board, take the schools into different arenas and also help train the parents to be comfortable approaching the authority. That's all I have. Thanks.
I think parental involvement is very important for the success of a school district. As a person who does not have children, I spend more time in some of our schools than our parents do, and for me, I would like to see more parents involved, but there is a barrier for some parents, whether it be transportation, whether it be language, whether it be the communication factors. I know they've talked of spending $25,000 to upgrade the district's website. Personally, I think that would be better spent on books or chairs or desks or buildings. But I think we need to take the campaign to the streets. What I would propose as an elected member of this school board is to create teams that will walk the neighborhoods, knock on doors of students who are in the Grand Rapids Public Schools, and talk face-to-face with these parents. A grassroots effort to get parents more involved in the schools.
First of all, I think schools without parental involvement is not a successful school. Another issue is the rumor that teachers or administrator, high school administrator, discourage parent involvement. I don't think we can generalize that, because I have been in many training with teachers, principals, and they welcome the parents for many reasons. The behavior of the kid in the classroom is a reflection of the home behavior, and vice versa. And then this is why we have to make sure that it's a very close relationship between teacher and parent. And if we do that, I'm sure the kids are in the best environment to learn. And together, we can have a very successful school. But I disagree with the discouragement of the teachers and parents that they don't disagree in that. I don't think this is right. I think they are willing to participate. The only issue is most of the parents are working parents.
Being a parent of an 8 and a 10-year-old in the Grand Rapids Public School System, I have talked to many of the teachers, and to be honest with you, they are a little intimidated by parent involvement on occasion because they feel it might draw some criticism. So sometimes there are some barriers to getting in those classrooms. Now, we have worked very hard to have really open dialogue with our teachers to make them feel comfortable in how to engage parents that want to be involved. But I think it is there's another side of the coin, is meeting people where they are and allowing them to be involved in a way that works for them. We've tried lots of different things to get parents involved in our school, up to and including maybe not seeing them physically, but maybe they can contribute in another way from home or in a time frame that works for them in a better way. But I think to Ms. Lanier, we need to meet people where they are. And I think if we provide parents and teachers some guidelines for how to interact and make them feel comfortable and safe in opening their classrooms up to parents, that would go a long way.
Thank you for that question because, again, part of my platform is parental and community involvement. And I agree with Ms. Lanier as she was saying that certainly need to know of those principals or administrators that are those barriers that are not allowing those individuals into the schools. Because what we're trying to do, even with the new and renovated facilities, is make those buildings community, parental, free. Not free, but make sure that they have the liberty to come into those buildings. Make sure that the buildings are open to the public, open to the parents. And another thing, as Ms. Geetson was talking, me being a preacher, I always have to put this in here. Jesus met people at their needs. So there may be individuals that have language barriers that are intimidated to come in. The city commission, what they do, I know at least once a year, they may do it a couple times a year, they actually have their city commission meeting in the community versus downtown at the city hall. So they come where the persons live. I would be an advocate of that. And we're also talking on the city school liaison committee about having a co-meeting of the city commissioners and the Board of Ed in the community. So I think that would help out a lot also.
Well, part of the reason I'm running for the Board of Education is that I'm in the community. I've been retired from the school system now for 9 years, and I'm still a part of the community, and I will be until I die. My community is important to me. I live in the Alexander School community. I can't believe that there would be an administrator or teacher in our school district who would make that kind of statement, and if they did make that kind of statement, I think it's a case for disciplinary action, especially on the part of the teacher. A teacher that speaks negatively about their school pulls down everybody. And when you tell a parent they can't be involved in the school, they prefer that they not be involved in the school, you're saying, we really don't want you here. And that's a horrible thing to say to our parents because we need them. They are the people who are primarily responsible for the education and the development of a child. And if we don't involve them in what we're doing, I think we're doing that child a terrible disservice. It's totally against my own personal beliefs, and I think it's totally against the beliefs of the school system. I know principals struggle with ways to get parents involved. When I was a principal at our Montessori school, we had over 40 parents a month that came into the school, and they were welcomed. It took us time to figure out how to involve them, but there are many ways that they can be involved: after-school programs and help in the classroom, reading with the children, and so on. So I'm very much in favor of personal or parent involvement.
We have one final question from the audience this evening. Tony Baker will respond first. What do you plan to do to support the 50% of ninth graders who have less than a 2.0 grade point average? In the fall, will they still be ninth graders?
Could you repeat that once more?
Yes. What do you plan to do to support the 50% of ninth graders who have less than a 2.0 grade point average? In the fall, will they still be ninth graders?
So would they be ninth graders rather than repeating eighth grade? Okay. I'll try to figure that. Well, how about if I'm going to address it, hopefully I'm not going off of the question too much, on how do I get them to be graduates. And so I think that it's very important that ninth graders at a crucial time, begin to hopefully be aspiring to go on to either college or to whatever else their degree is going to be in. So I think that their educational aspirations at that point are most important. I am impressed with the concepts around the trimesters that are allowing students who are struggling at the younger ages to catch up. I think that with the new state standards and the requirements for the number of years of math and English to be behind at ninth grade, and I think that at some point maybe they shouldn't be ninth graders, and that they need to be prepared to be in school for the longer term. I don't want to look at a policy that's going to keep them from being invested in school as they age into the system, and as they age closer to the age where they could have other options in life rather than staying in school. So that's how I'll end that. So.
some of the most important things that we can do is to provide students the resources they need to learn and provide teachers the resources they need to teach. Students, it has become systematic, and not just in this district, but in districts, public school districts, and even some private schools all over the country, that students, regardless of what their grade point is at the end of the year, they're passed on to the next grade. That is an issue here in Grand Rapids, and it has been for a long time. But I do think that the trimesters help, and I think increased opportunities for students to make up work that they missed or that they didn't do well on. Even opportunities for students to get extra credit. Anything that we can do to provide an opportunity for a student to increase their grades and pass on to the next grade with the skills that they need.
Well, I think this is a problem we have nationwide. But speaking in Grand Rapids Public School, I would suggest that we can create a ninth grade academy with study tables and with very strong program to make sure that they reach the grade level. As Derek said, I don't believe the social promotion. We have to make sure if they pass from one grade to another, it's because they are with the knowledge and skills enough to be in the next grade. We have to make sure that we help those young students to pass and to be in the good study table in the summer.
I think much like my answer to parent involvement, we need to meet students where they are. The benefit of having a large district is that we have a little bit more flexibility than a smaller district in offering choices, such as the Centers for Innovation, which can put students in places where they're attracted to the learning environment and may be more invested in their education, as well as the trimester opportunity. I'm a big proponent of that because it does give people a second chance. And from the sounds of what I've learned about the curriculum, maybe we'll address certain students that need a little longer in learning a particular topic area. We are going to struggle with the new state requirements because that really is a building of education from elementary level up. So it will take some time for some of these students to get caught up, and I think the trimester thing will certainly be a step in the right direction.
I also agree that the trimester will certainly be of assistance in this area. We also have, with the new proposal for the counselors, the Board of Education gives money for one counselor, but it does not take the school down to one counselor. Each school has their own opportunity to pay for other counselors. We have 31A money that also handles the student advocates. I think this is where the student advocate can really play a big role in encouraging those students. Hey, you need to get your work done. You need to get some extra credit. You need to go to credit recovery. These programs are already in place in GRPS, credit recovery, night school, summer school, but there has to be a mindset from that student who's coming up short to take advantage of those. We can encourage, the student advocates can encourage, the parents can encourage, but that mindset has to be in that student in order to achieve that. So certainly trimesters will help, but the mindset has to change also. And I'm also not an advocate of social promotion. They need to earn that.
Agreed. Trimesters is one way that we can be a little more flexible in providing these students the things that they might need. I'd be really disturbed if 50% of our students are not ready for ninth grade. That's terrifying to me. It means that we have to do a better job at letting these students know what kind of career paths they might be able to follow, and talk to them often at 6th, 7th, and 8th grade level about the kinds of things that they could do for the rest of their life. It doesn't necessarily mean that they have to go to college. But the important thing is to stress to them that in order to be in any career, you need to at least graduate from high school. I think they're doing a lot more in the Grand Rapids Public School system with career exploration, and to me that's a real key. Also, I think students get discouraged by, some of the students, I was discouraged by standardized testing processes. Some of us don't take standardized tests very well. I was one of those, and I ended up with a doctor's degree. So it doesn't prove whether you're intelligent enough or not. It proves that you didn't know that particular concept at that particular level presented to you in that particular way. So I really think we need to start at 6th, 7th, and 8th grade level, letting these kids know I have value and I can have purpose in life, but I don't have to be the graduate of a university, and there are other things that I can do.
Well, first of all, just for clarification, students are moved throughout the high school process based on the credits that they receive. So, for instance, if this student had less than a 2.0, they probably did pass some classes, and so those classes, they may go to the next grade English, let's say. If they pass English, they would go to the next grade English. However, if they didn't pass a class, then they wouldn't move on to an advanced course in the next grade level. With that being said, I think some of the things that would help students in this situation is diversifying the means of engaging our student population. And again, I think that thematic schools will be one way to engage our students, and because they'll have schools that are conducive to what their expectations are, and it'll be similar to their gift sets and things of that nature, and I think that will be a bonus and a help for students. Because if you're an engaged student, sometimes you have really articulate students not succeeding just because they're bored in classrooms. So if you have an engaged student in a thematic school, that would help. I think the student advocates, of course, the trimesters, because they'll have an opportunity to take more classes in a school year than they have currently. And certainly they would be able to recover any credits, and that's the same with the credit recovery program as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we please take a moment and give our school board candidates a round of applause? Thank you for sharing your positions this evening. It is our hope that you found the panel discussion very informative and that it allows you to make a more informed decision on Tuesday, May 6th. We would love to hear your feedback regarding tonight's forum. Please take a moment again to complete the evaluations. You may return them to a volunteer as you exit the auditorium. Before we adjourn, I would like to welcome Lucy Joswick from Girl Scout of Michigan Trails, who helped put together tonight's forum, to the podium.
Hello. I would just like to reinstate the thank yous that have been given tonight, and especially thank the committee for helping to plan this forum, the Girl Scouts of Michigan Trails, the Mayor's Youth Council, and the Citywide Student Council, and of course the candidates for coming tonight. It's always an honor for me to watch youth in action, and this was quite an experience watching them. So this was inspired by the youth and delivered by a group of volunteers and adults. So without one another, we would not have been able to pull it off. So thank you. A couple announcements that I do want to make. We have been taping this, you might have noticed, and so it will be airing on Channel 27 no later than the beginning of next week. So keep your eyes open for that. And then another announcement, we have lovely We Vote signs that are available for you to stick in your yard to remind others to vote. And those are right out of the front doors. We'd love for you to take one. And don't forget, those of you that are voting age tonight, please vote on Tuesday, May 6th. All right. Thank you so much. And if you'd like, you're welcome to go out and enjoy some more coffee, water, and Girl Scout cookies. Thank you.